Hey there, welcome in. My name's Josh, and this is Technical Tuesday, and today we are talking about perspective again. So, perspective is super important, right? Like, perspective is the thing that turns, your drawing from, like, this being a house, right, into, like, this being a cube. Like, it gives things depth. It's super important. It's what you need if you want your stuff to look cool. But how can you do that? So, like, if you're drawing a picture, you're like, I want to have a tree, here, and then I want to have another tree, like, here, like... Even just in sketches like this, you're already playing with perspective because you can tell that this thing is bigger and closer to you than this thing here because it's smaller. And like, it's things like that that you don't know that you're thinking about, but that you are thinking about because it's like all these rules of perspective, right? So if you have a perspective grid like this, right? Like this tree is further along in, the horizon, right? Here's your sun, right? Like Lion King style, than this tree, right? So when you're trying to create an environment, it can be really helpful to have a perspective grid. And perspective grids are pretty much just fancy, ways of grids being laid out in perspective. So all you do is just create a giant, enormous tic-tac-toe line like this, right? So pretty easy. Press Control-T. And then if you right-click, you can hit, perspective right here, and you can move it this way. Or, an easier way, if you just press Control-T and you hold down Control, Alt, and Shift, you can start making this guy move in perspective. You hold down all three and drag the bottom left, you can flatten it out, right? And you just drag the whole thing down, and you can flatten it out again, And you can just keep doing this, shrink it down, duplicate it, whatever. But this now looks like a ground plane. Isn't that kind of cool? And you could duplicate it again, and then you could try to, make it look different. Maybe you could rotate it. Maybe you could put it this way, have another ground plane. Oh, I like that one better. And then, or maybe you could rotate it over here. And now you have like a, what is this? That'd be like a hill, like in your foreground going down. So, and you can, by mixing and matching these planes, you can kind of get an idea of what your scene is going to look like. And that, it automatically gets you, thinking in perspective. And, something that another artist called, Thomas Romain, he does this where he's the guy, by the way, if you don't know who Thomas Romain is, he's made a few animes, he's kind of cool. On the internet, on Instagram, he's known for, taking his kids' drawings and turning them into cool pieces. But he has a whole thread over on his Twitter, and there's, a Tumblr blog about it. But he kind of plays with this idea as well, where you actually sketch out your ideas in 2D, from a top-down perspective, and then you just use that same perspective warp tool, like we talked about right here, and you can make it, into perspective. So, like, for example, for the layout of the room, as you can see here, you drop from a top-down angle, and then you flatten it out, and then you can draw up the rest of it. And this is a different way of, basically, you can do this by using 3D software, or you can use it this way, or you can just do it all in your head. But the big takeaway from today's lesson with perspective is all you have to do is just make a tic-tac-toe grid and then stretch it with Control-T and holding Control-Alt and Shift, and you can get a ground plane. You can do this. And this even works with textures too. Like if you get a big toothy brush like this and you do something like this, right? So you have some texture. And you do this, you can put in, now it can actually kind of look like ground or dirt or something else, just and this is like a cheat of trying to get lighting information here. It's like, oh, so this white area, this has to be light, which means just from this picture, the light is somewhere up here, coming down this way, or it could be coming down this way, So basically, by moving things around in perspective, you can get some pretty interesting shots. With the top of your line being the first, like this is a low horizon line, now this is a high horizon line. So it can get your creative juices flowing. So that's it just for this Technical Tuesday. Short little tip, messing with perspective, messing with ground planes, perspective grid. It's a great little trick to start getting creative. I hope this helped you. If you liked it, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, comment again. For more about me, be sure to check out my Patreon, join our Discord community. It's amazing. We'd love to have you. And then for more behind the scenes look at more of who I am, be sure to follow me on Instagram. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see all of you next week.